Paris, a name that today means romance, art, beauty. But in the 1600s, Paris was none of those things. There were no glowing cafes, no tourists, no Eiffel Tower. There was mud, there was smoke, there was fear. This was a city where nightfall meant danger, where disease moved faster than news, where kings ruled in gold and common people survived in filth. This is not the Paris you know. This is Paris before the light. In the early 1600s, Paris was already one of Europe's largest cities. Nearly 500,000 people packed into narrow streets. But the streets were not paved. They were rivers of mud. Horses, carts, people, all mixed together. Waste flowed openly through the roads. There was no sewage system. Human waste, animal waste, rotting food, everything ended up on the street. The smell never left. Windows were small. Buildings leaned inward, blocking the sun. Paris felt closed, claustrophobic, dangerous. Most Parisians lived hard lives. They woke before sunrise, worked until their bodies gave out, and still went to bed hungry. Bread was everything. When bread prices rose, people panicked. When bread disappeared, people rioted. Entire families lived in single rooms. Children worked as soon as they could walk. Shoemakers, weavers, porters, servants. There was no safety net. If you got sick, you were alone. If you lost work, you starved. And sickness was everywhere. The plague never truly left Paris. It returned again and again, silent, unstoppable. When plague appeared, the city changed overnight. Doors were marked, homes were sealed, bodies piled up. Doctors wore masks with long beaks, stuffed with herbs, hoping to block death itself. They didn't understand disease. They prayed, they fled, they blamed the poor. Whole neighborhoods emptied. Paris learned to live with death. When the sun went down, Paris became something else. No streetlights, no police force, only darkness. Criminals ruled the night. Pickpockets, thieves, gangs. If you walked alone after dark, you might not return. People locked themselves inside. Candles were precious. Silence was rare. Paris did not sleep. It waited. The church was powerful. It decided what was moral, what was sinful, what was acceptable. Church bells controlled time. Birth, marriage, death, all passed through religion. But faith did not mean kindness. The poor were told suffering was God's will. The rich were told power was divine. Questioning the church was dangerous. Truth was controlled. While the people suffered, the elite lived differently. Nobles wore silk, ate lavish meals, held grand gatherings. Gold chandeliers hung above rooms where decisions were made that common people would never understand. The contrast was brutal. Two Parises existed, one starving, one shining, and tension grew. In 1643, a child became king, Louis XIV, only 5 years old. Paris watched carefully. The city had seen weak rulers before, and when the king was young, power slipped into other hands. Nobles fought for control. The people paid the price. Rebellions erupted. The city burned with unrest. The Fronde was chaos. Nobles rebelled. Parliament resisted the crown. The people were caught in between. Barricades appeared in the streets. Stones replaced laws. Paris turned on itself. Young Louis XIV was forced to flee the city, and he never forgot. Paris had scared him. When Louis XIV returned, he returned changed. He would never again allow Paris to control him. He centralized power, he crushed resistance, and eventually he moved the royal court away from Paris to Versailles. Paris lost the king, but gained something else: order. Slowly, Paris began to transform. New rules, more control, early forms of policing. Street lighting appeared. Not everywhere, but enough. Crime decreased. The city breathed slightly easier. The foundations of modern Paris were forming, not through peace, but through pain. Still, life was hard. Diseases continued, poverty remained, but Parisians adapted. They survived. They always had. Through wars, through kings, through death. Paris was not beautiful yet, but it was becoming strong. Paris in the 1600s was not romantic. It was raw. It was dangerous. It was alive. Every stone you see today was laid on centuries of struggle. Before the lights, before the art, before the beauty, there was survival. And that survival built the Paris the world now loves.